I would say, first of all, I would say we're in a depression right now. It
Okay.
will last for a long period of time, but a lot of people get confused, and one can understand why, about the difference between a recession and a depression.
Yeah. Please.
Most mainstream economists, they don't like what I call the D word. They don't talk about depressions.
Mm.
They talk about recession. So a recession is conventionally defined as two or more consecutive quarters of declining GDP. And this would be the first back-to-back recession since 1980, 1981. So you have a recession, you come out of it, and then you go right back down into recession. So that's technical recessions. Depressions are different. And a lot of people think, well, if a recession is two quarters of declining GDP and a depression is worse, well, a depression must mean 10 quarters of declining GDP, as if it's a really long recession. And that's not the definition. The depression means depressed growth. Growth is depressed relative to trend, relative to potential. So you can actually have growth in a depression, but the point is the growth is too weak. And so this is what we're in. We had the third quarter, when you went down that sharply, you were going to come back pretty steeply. That's natural. But we didn't come all the way back. People say, well, okay, you went down 31% and you went back up 33%. So aren't you back where you started? And of course, the answer is no, because you're applying the 33% to a smaller base. So if you normalize, let's say 2019 is 100% of 2019 output. You go down 5%, and then you go down 31%. Well, now you're around 65% of the prior output. Well, if 65 is the new base and you go up 33, that adds 21 or 22, but you're only back to 87 because you're working off a smaller base. Even if you have, in my example, 10% growth in the fourth quarter of 2020, it's 10% of 87, so add on 8 more. You're only back to 95. So a simple way to understand it, you fall into a 50-foot hole, you climb out 20 feet, well, that's good climbing, but you're still in the hole. You're not back to where you started. But a better comparison is maybe Japan. I would say Japan has been in depression since 1990.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean, now they had growth and recessions and growth and recessions. You can have two or more recessions in a depression with periodic growth. But the point is, you never get back to the old potential. I mean, good example, the Japanese stock index, the Nikkei index, in New Year's Eve 1989, it was 40,000. Today, 30 years later, it's about 28,000. But okay, it came off the bottom, but it never made it back to the prior high.
It'll never be.
Oh, I think that's right. It may never be. And another example, in October 1929, the United States stock market crashed, a very famous crash, but it lasted for 3 years. And when it bottomed in 1932, it was down 89.2%, almost 90%. That's what a stock market crash looks like. But then you ask people the next question and say, well, when did it get back to the 1929 high? How long did that take? The answer is 1954. It took 25 years to get back to where. Now, it doesn't mean you couldn't make money in the meantime. You could have bought the low in 1932 and made money in 1933. But that's what depressions look like. That's the kind of thing we're in. This will be intergenerational. The effects of this will last for not 30 months, but 30 years. Wow. And there's very good evidence to back that up. There was a group, it was an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco and two academic economists. And they looked at all of the pandemics in the last 650 years, going back to the Black Death. I often criticize economists because their time series are too short. They say they're doing correlations and regressions. I was like, well, no, we need a much bigger time series. Well, 650 years is good enough. But they went back to the 1350s, to the Black Death, and they looked at every pandemic in which 100,000 or more people died. The fatalities were 100,000 or more. Of course, the two worst were the Black Death, the plague in the 1350s, and the Spanish flu around 1918, 1919. The Black Death was about 75 million dead, they estimate, and the Spanish flu was 100 million dead. And then after that, there were several where there were 2 million fatalities and some fewer. They were using 100,000. Well, there were only 15 pandemics in the 650 years where 100,000 or more died.
Before we